Welcome everyone. Today I have a new guide for Diablo 4. So in this video, I want to make a summarized video and a shorter video to give you guys some of the best builds for each of the classes that's coming for Season 2. Now what I'm going to focus in this video is, we'll focus on leveling first, then we'll focus on the transitioning of the mid game and also to the end game for farming the bosses and also nightmare dungeons. And this video will be broken down into two parts. The first part will look into the 4 best builds which I think will be available for Season 2 for each of the class. And one of the builds I'll be highlighting and also focusing on how effective and also how flexible it is. After that, what we'll do is, we'll have a look at some of the available build that is available on different builder sites and also on different Diablo 4 Season 2 building tips. And I'll briefly go through with you guys how to best use of those builds, guys, to find the best build for you guys to start off for Season 2. So starting off with the Barbarians. Now, if you guys have seen my previous notes and also previous videos, you kind of know for Barbarians, I'm looking for a few of the builds. So first of all, the Whirlwind build is going to be effective as a starter and also a leveling build for you to get from level 1, once you get to your codex, right? Once you get your codex from the dungeons, you can start from leveling up to level 50, 70 or even 100 with the Whirlwind build. It is very stable and it is one of the best starters for the Barbarians because of the easy access for the codex. After that, one thing I want to highlight is the Rent Rapture Barbarian build is a little better with the latest legendary aspects, which allows us to use raptures and does not remove bleeding damage from enemies. So if you guys haven't tried the Rent build for his Barbarian with a bleeding build, the damage output is very stable and it is very powerful, especially against the boss monsters as you stack those debuffs. Now the Hotter build for Barbarian is still gonna work because Hotter is a very stable build and Hotter does a lot of good damage. It is very effective in terms of clearing out AoE monsters and it allows you to level faster and also clear the nightmare dungeon much easier. One build I will be interested in for the Barbarian will be the Upheaval build. And Upheaval build has been buffed for Season 2. And we're going to test out how effective that is. Once a few of my friends try Barbarians, I'll let you guys know. Now, of course, guys, there's definitely going to be more build than just those 4 I'm showing with the Barbarians. And I guess what I want to do is I want to see how the Barbarians fare with the seasons. Maybe the Barbarian can do a double-handed, Berserker build, and maybe Barbarians can do a variety of build, maybe Thorns build. So those 4 builds I'm offering to you guys is definitely just a starter for the Barbarians. Now, if we come over to the Druid definitely have some interesting, theme for the Season 2, especially with Pulverize and Overpower. And for me, this is the most stable leveling and also mid-game to end-game build for the Druid. And now it's very potent for the late game because of the power of stacking your Fortify, Overpower, and dealing tremendous damage AoE. The second build for the Druid I want to mention is going to be the Tornado Wolf build. Now, most of you who has played the Druid before knows that you need the Tempest Roar to become truly effective with a Tornado build with the Werewolf. Now, it is possible, guys, the moment you enter Wolf difficulty 4, you have a chance of getting your Tempest Roar. And this can ranges from the lowest, nightmare dungeons to the higher nightmare dungeons. So if you guys were to get Tempest Roar for your Tornado Wolf or Lightning Stalk or any of the Werewolf with a combination of the Tempest Roar, this can be an early game jackpot for early, mid to late game. And finally, for the Druid, you can be going with the Stormclaw build, and this will require you of the Staff of the Crow. And this item, of course, can be farmable with some of the bosses that is available in the game. So which one was it? The Great Staff of Chrome is from Lord Zar. So notice that some of the Druid build will require certain unique item. And even though the Tempest Roar is coming from Doriel, it is still possible to obtain those items in the Nightmare dungeons normally instead of going for the unique bosses. So this makes the Druid much more available with a variety of build that can be working the moment you get those unique items. And of course, we have the Lightning Storm for the Druid. Personally, I feel the Lightning Storm is nice, but I'm actually preferring the other ones because I just like the raw damage output and also the speediness. I'm not saying the Lightning Storm build is weaker, especially with the ability to have generated skills that's also considered lightning and also earth spells. So this can definitely be interesting for the Druid. Now, coming over to the Necromancer. Because I'm planning to play the Necromancer, you can see that in the future videos we'll be making more detailed guides on the Necromancer. For me, as the leveling Necromancer, I definitely want to go into something like the Corpse Explosion build just for the AoE clear. Now I do get my hands on a few of the less legendary aspects, like the Blood Mist triggers Corpse Explosion, this can be very good. Other than that, I can still go with a minions build, which will just give me a very easy time, especially with a minions passive, to not get one-shotted. And I could go with a Bone Necromancer build, which is just a Bone Spear. You can go with Bone Spear by itself, or go with the minions. Finally, going with a Blood Surge Blood Necromancer build gave us a lot of varieties. To go with a Necromancer, or just go with Unkillable Necromancer. Now, just on a side note, I know I'm going through those builds quite fast, simply because there's gonna be 20 builds I want to go through, and then we're gonna briefly talk about how to look for those builds and what are the builds you can be looking for Season 2. So bear with me, guys. Now, coming over to the Rogue. As you guys know, the Twisting Blade build for the Rogue never disappoints, because it is a craftable codex, and also Spinning to Win gives us a lot of utility, give you a lot of stagger, and lots of damage output. And this can combine into other combos of the build, like the poison stacking, the traps. Of course, you can't go Twisting Blade with a range build, which we'll talk about very soon. Now, if you guys have played the poison pool for the Rogue, the poison damage seems to be a little buffed in Season 2. But really, we need to do some testing to see how much damage the Rogue can do with the poison stacking. But most of the Rogue's build is effectively against multiple enemies, and also very good for killing bosses and also single target. So if you guys start with a Twisting Blade build for leveling, you can quickly transition into any of the other build other than the range build if you do get your hands on some of the unique items or legendary aspects that is available in the game. So the poison stacking and also the traps build will be very good for the Rogue as you transition into the later stage of the game. But at the same time, do keep a lookout for a very high item level, range weapon, because the range accessibility and also variety for the Rogue is buffed in Season 2. It is likely the Rogue is going to have a very good range build that is going to be available for Season 2. But of course, we'll be testing this out for Season 2 once it comes live. Now, finally, coming over to the sources. Firewall build is going to be really good for leveling up, and so is the Chain Lightning build. I actually do recommend going with the Chain Lightning build if you guys haven't tried it. It's actually a pretty good leveling up build. You can of course go with Ice Mage build, or maybe go with a Conjuring Sources. Now, personally speaking, I'm not going to be the most knowledgeable player for Sources, and I do plan to play Sources as my second character this season, or maybe as my first character next season. So this is a really good short summary of the builds. And before I go on to the next part, one thing I want to highlight is, as you guys go look and also plan for your build, it is very important to know which of the legendary aspects and also codex is going to be craftable. So for example, for the Twisting Blade and also Whirlwind build, those core codex can be craftable onto the two-handed weapon for the Rogue and also Barbarian, which allows your Twisting Blade to be circling around you and also to increase your critical chance with Whirlwind. Now that we briefly look at some of the best builds for each of the class, hopefully it's short enough, so let's briefly have a look at 3 different sites for build making and also for build planning for Season 2. So firstly, we have Mobilitics. I'll have all of those links available for you guys. For Mobilitics, you come over here and come over to builds, and you can select the character or the class you want to play with. And then you can be picking the leveling and also for different stage of the game, end game, boss killer, any of the build that is available. They have just updated for Season 2. And if you guys do have a look, you can be breaking down from the classes and also for different type of the build you're looking for. So this is why I give you guys an indication of the build, and then you can check out those sites. Similarly, you can come over to the default builders. So there is a variety of the build from leveling, mid-game to the end game, and those classes will be available. Now, do keep in mind, guys, some of those builds may be a little out of date for most of those sites, and do stay tuned for the latest builds as it becomes available for Season 2. Finally, if we come over to the max row, we can see that there will be tier lists available, and I do recommend coming over to the tier list, and they have updated for Season 2. So the first thing you want to do is come over to the speed build tier list, and then go into an endgame tier list. So sometimes you can see some really high ranking builds, and those are to be tested, of course. So you notice that for the in-game and also mid-game builds, you can see a variety of those builds. What I recommend after this is, I'll show you guys an example over here. So let's say if I'm trying to look into the Infinite Mist Necromancer. After looking into the Necromancer, I'll briefly come over here to have a look which of the core legendary effects I will be needing for my Necromancer. And for the Infinite Mist Necromancer, you will be Blood Mist triggering Corpse Explosion. And this will be very critical for you to plan your build. So ideally, how you want to use this guide is, I want to give you guys a general reference of the 4 builds you can be looking for each of the classes. And then you can go onto any of the build making site to have a look some of those builds. And once you have decided for one to two of those builds, then you can look into those builds into more details. And hopefully this will help you guys to plan for those builds. Now before we finish, do keep in mind guys, a lot of those building sites and also builds are still using some parts from Season 1, and this is to be expected as they get upgraded into Season 2. So do keep in mind if you see Season 1 stuff, or if you see the Paragon trees and also skill trees to be a little different to what you expected, this is to be updated onto those sites. Now, if you guys haven't subscribed, it is a really good time to do so, because I'll be covering tons of Diablo 4 related topics and also videos and also guides. We'll be looking to the top meta builds, non-meta builds, leveling up, and also Paragon tricks. We're also looking to the latest events and also official updates, and also changes to different characters and also different builds in the game. So make sure you hit that subscribe button and also turn the notification on, because a lot of you who are watching the videos have not subscribed. You can see 80% of the viewers who are watching our videos have not subscribed, so make sure you subscribe to stay tuned for the latest update for Diablo 4.